Today, I'd like to define interpersonal perception and its subcategory of physiological states and traits. Interpersonal perception is the process of creating meaning from the people we encounter and relationships created through those encounters. Let's look at an example of interpersonal perception. You are at a party and your cousin sticks their finger in your cake. Now let's take the same scenario and replace your cousin with a stranger. How is your response going to differ from cousin to stranger? With your cousin, you will be annoyed and disgusted, but you'll forget about it. With a stranger, you might be a little freaked out that they just defiled your cake. Their actions may leave a long-lasting imprint on your mind. So why is your reaction different? Your interpersonal connection to each other is different. Your cousin and you have a more intimate relationship, whereas you know nothing about this stranger. You know varying levels of information about each other, which helps to inform you as to whether the act was a threat or wasn't. Your depth of interpersonal perception with the individuals helps you to make an informed decision and to influence your perception of the defilement of your cake through their finger. If we begin to pick apart interpersonal perception, we find the influence of physiology. Physiology is defined in our textbook as the study of mechanical and biochemical ways in which our bodies work. And we can subcategorize physiology for our purposes into states and into traits. Physiological states are conditions we go through that are temporary. An example of a physiological state is fatigue. You go out with your friends late every night, and because you wake up early for sports practice, you don't get enough sleep, which causes you to be more hostile to your friends and your coach. Whereas if you were to go to bed on time, you might not feel that same kind of hostility towards them. You're tired, you're fatigued, you're not able to control yourself in the same way or handle yourself in the same way as you typically would. So in contrast, a physiological trait is a condition that will affect us on an ongoing basis. So let's say you grew up in Mexico, so you're used to the summer heat, whereas your friend grew up in Canada and they love the cold. They're not going to want to work in a job where they are constantly in 100-degree weather, whereas you wouldn't want to go into a job where maybe you work in a freezer all night. Your physiological traits kind of define you and define your friends. So today I defined interpersonal perception, and I defined physiological states versus physiological traits. Thank you so much for listening.